You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Edition of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com, episode number 163. I am Tyler Munn, Sam Dykstra in New York City. We're talking all things minor league baseball in our first post-draft episode of the show for 2018. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
How was the draft, by the way? You got to be there in Syracuse, New Jersey at MLB Network on Monday. How was it?
Well, I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited, and then the night was over and Rob Manfred hadn't called my name.
Unbelievable.
So I don't know why I was there.
We had such high hopes this year for you.
I know, right? Like, this is
finally.
I don't even want to count how many years I've been draft eligible now, but it's too many to not hear my name called, and I'm frankly disappointed.
At some point, man, you just reach the age where you realize I don't think the call's ever coming.
Yeah. So instead, I got to go and cover the event, which is also pretty cool.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So there were 6 different guys there in attendance Monday night, and it's really neat just to see them and see their dream kind of realized in a room like that. And this isn't like the NBA draft or the NFL draft where they're much bigger groups that get to go, and a lot of that has to do with the NCAA playoffs are going on right now, and guys are kind of preoccupied with that from the college ranks. But some of the really cool cheering sections were there. I think one of them, Tristan Cassis, said that he bumped up against the limit for the amount of people you're allowed to bring. I didn't know there was a limit. So when he heard his name called to the Red Sox at number 26, it just went off like he was the number 1 overall pick. So it was really neat. Really fun to be there and be a part of that whole process.
The guy who I felt a little bit bad for when they were first announcing who was in attendance at the MLB Network studios in Syracuse, New Jersey, Alec Bohm, the third baseman from Wichita State, they said his name, and it was dead silent.
Yes. Yep.
And then all of a sudden they said, actually, I think it was Tristan Cassis right after him, and the place went nuts. And I was like, wait a minute, where was Alec Bohm's contingent? What happened here? I felt so bad, Alec.
That's the moment I realized that Tristan Cassis had that many people there. But also, nobody really knew if they were supposed to be reacting. It kind of felt like high school graduation in that way.
Yeah, that's true.
You're kind of told not to clap for all, but then somebody breaks, and you have to do it for everybody.
Hold your applause until the last. Nope, not going to happen. It seemed like it must have been a fun time, and we're going to talk about the MLB draft coming up here momentarily. Thanks for tuning in to the Show Before the Show from MILB.com. Every week we're with you talking about minor league baseball, and you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, the Stitcher app, some other app that somebody told us about one time recently, and you can find us on MILB.com/podcast as well to catch up on all things past on the Show Before the Show, and you can get in touch with us as well. Podcast at MILB.com, and send us your questions, your thoughts, your comments, your concerns, and we will do our best to address them. And with that, strike one on 3 strikes for this week's episode, and we're going to kick things off talking about the draft and just some overall impressions. The opening selection of the draft, no surprise really, Casey Mize, the right-handed pitcher from Auburn University, not selected out of high school, taken as the first overall pick as a junior in college. Pretty ridiculous. Joey Bart goes second to the San Francisco Giants, the catcher from Georgia Tech. Third baseman Alec Bohm of Wichita State goes to the Philadelphia Phillies at number 3. At number 4, Oregon State second baseman / shortstop Nick Madrigal went to the Chicago White Sox. Jonathan India, the third baseman from the University of Florida, went to the Cincinnati Reds at number 5. And Jared Kelenic was the first prep pick off the board, the outfielder from Wisconsin, who was the first Wisconsin prep pick to ever go in the top 10 picks in the draft, but the first high schooler selected this year. Ryan Weathers to San Diego, left-handed pitcher from Tennessee at number 7. Carter Stewart, right-handed pitcher from high school in Florida at number 8 to the Atlanta Braves. Kyler Murray, the quarterback/outfielder for the University of Oklahoma, goes to the Oakland Athletics at number 9. And at number 10, one of the best names in the draft, Travis Swaggerty of the University of South Alabama. The outfielder went to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So those are the top 10, as like the official dog of the Minor League Baseball podcast runs in and shakes her collar to say hello. But Sam, give me just kind of your impressions of the first round and really the first couple of days. We're recording this on day 3 of the draft on Wednesday, but what is just your breakdown of what you've seen in 2018 so far?
Yeah, I mean, running through those top 10 picks and in strike 2, we'll get into some of the surprises. So, I'll hold off on some of those for that. But the kind of interesting thing about this is that it wasn't really all that surprising. I mean, Mize is somebody, who we talked on the show last week, was tied to the Tigers at 1-1 for a long time. He was widely accepted to be the number 1 overall talent in the draft. So this kind of was a normal draft in that sense. There wasn't that drama of, were the Tigers trying to save money for later picks or something like that. They had the first overall pick. They went with the top talent. You plug Mize into that system that is already pretty right-handed pitching heavy. Franklin Perez, Matt Manning, Bo Burrows, last year's first-round pick, Alex Faedo. These are all guys who are their top prospects right now. Mize slots in there somewhere. I think he would probably be the top prospect in that system right now over Perez because of his plus-plus splitter and his really good fastball and slider. But, if you wanted to get into a game, if this was another sport of do they draft for need or something like that, you already have a bunch of right-handed pitchers. Do you need another one? It's not how this works. Chances are, 2, 3, 4, maybe all 5 don't work out, and you want to give yourself a chance at developing a true ace. Somewhere in that mix, they may have one. Perez has looked like one at times. Faedo is having a really strong start to the year in the FSL. Burrows was in the Futures game last year, pumping heat. Manning, is still very raw, but has all the pieces there and the physical tools as well. Tigers definitely got better by taking Mize at 1. Bart at number 2 to the San Francisco Giants. Again, something that kind of just made sense given the way everybody was kind of tying the Giants to Bart. Feels a little bit of a safe pick. I'll be honest on that front. I would not say he's necessarily the number 2 overall talent. As much as everybody agreed that Mize is number 1, there's a lot more disagreement on who's number 2. So the Giants, could go any different direction. They go with Bart, who is definitely the best all-around catcher in this group. Really good, really strong defensively. Will throw out his fair share of runners, and that'll only improve as he enters the pro ranks, gets to work with some catching coordinators and that type of stuff. But developed into a really strong hitter as well as in his time at Georgia Tech. Bohm at 3 to the Phillies, Madrigal at 4 to the White Sox, and India at 5 to the Reds. It was notable that the top 5 teams all went college picks. I was talking to our editor, Paige Schechter, about that and how that's kind of rare. Sometimes teams this high, they want to go for the high schoolers, the prep guys who, they are raw. It's going to take a while to develop, but you'll have them longer in your own system. You can kind of mold them in the way you want. These top 5 teams going with guys who, the last 3 years have matured as college players, a little bit safer in that direction. I think that speaks a little bit more to the class. If Hunter Green was in this mix, Royce Lewis, Mackenzie Gore, they're all probably talked about in that top 5 mix from last year. There just wasn't somebody of that caliber this year to kind of break through. Jared Kelenic, like you mentioned, to the Mets, was the top high schooler picked in this year's draft. That still seems about right that he went, number 6 to the Mets. So really interesting group this year. Kind of interesting that there weren't the surprises, but 2 teams that I was looking at going in between the Royals and the Rays. They have the 2 biggest bonus pool structures kind of going into the draft because of their compensation picks and how they got to make consecutive selections there after the first round. That helps build out their profile for who they can take. They looked at a little bit, the Royals did with Brady Singer, who a lot of people thought was going to be the top overall talent in the draft coming into the year. He slid back a little bit after, a still really strong year. In his junior campaign at the University of Florida. He was named a Golden Spikes finalist today, actually. So he still did really well, just didn't quite show the same stuff. He falls to the Royals at 18. The Rays get Matthew Liberatore, who I know you saw last year, Tyler, in the 18 and under. Is it under 18 or 18 and under World Cup? I think
18
it was
and under.
18 and under.
It's technically called U18, but it's players up to the age of 18.
Okay. He's a left-handed pitcher out of Arizona. I think he threw a shutout or threw 6 scoreless innings in the gold medal game of that. He's shown basically everywhere that he can handle, a big atmosphere. Falls to the Rays at 16. So both of those organizations, who are willing to take a risk, have potentially top 10 talents fall to them anyways. And there is no question about signability at this point. They'll do what they need to do to bring those guys into the fold. Everything I was kind of looking at coming into the draft kind of fell into the places that we expected. That said, there were some surprises, and we'll get into them here in strike 2. But anything stand out to you, Tyler, about first day, second day, third day now that we're here?
No, I mean, I thought, the run on really high-level college talent, like you said, was kind of interesting. It just seemed like it was a class in which high school talent has maybe a similar ceiling to everything that we've seen in years past, but not necessarily as easy of a pathway, or guys who are developed quite as high right now in their tools and where they would fit as professional ball players. So the fact that it was, right out of the gate, it's 5 straight college guys to go, and it really was college players dominating the first round throughout, was pretty interesting. But yeah, it seemed like a relatively straightforward draft. I mean, we have seen at times in recent years, picks that just kind of come out of nowhere, especially high, whether it's pick number 1 or pick number 3 in the top 10, something like that, where you're not really expecting a guy to go where he did. The guy who I think probably intrigues most people right now is Kyler Murray because of what he presents as far as being a two-way athlete. The Oakland Athletics have already said they're very excited to become Oklahoma Sooners fans, but he's a guy who's expected to inherit the program at Oklahoma from Baker Mayfield and play quarterback in Norman. And this is not anything unprecedented by far. I mean, Russell Wilson was a minor league ball player as well as being a college quarterback during his time at NC State and Wisconsin. So it's something that can be done, and whether or not Kyler Murray chooses to go that route, if he's drafted with the 9th overall selection, I would imagine he's going to sign and play baseball. That's a slot value of over $4.75 million. $4,761,500 is the slot value for that pick. And when you're playing college athletics, yeah, it's fun to play college athletics. $5 million is probably more fun, so we'll see which way Kyler Murray goes, but that's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm really interested in that situation.
Yeah, no, that was really surprising, to be honest with you, that he went that high at number 9 to the A's. The A's must have seen something they really, really like, and part of that is, again, he is raw. There's still a lot to mold there, and I think that could be potentially exciting for Oakland. What's going to happen with him when he is focusing on baseball exclusively? We won't know that for another year, it sounds like. He said strictly, I'm going back to Norman to play football in the fall, and as you mentioned, we've seen that work out for guys before, and I know Amir Garrett even doing basketball. It's also possible. Yeah. So, there are ways to get around that. How they work exactly, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm really surprised that you are allowed to sign a professional contract and still technically be an amateur athlete according to the NCAA.
It's a little strange, right? With the NCAA's rules on everything else, it seems kind of bizarre.
Right. But hey, all the better for him. I'm all for guys having options and doing whatever they want. And in that room on Monday was Bo Jackson, which I thought was really cool. And, Murray didn't fall to the Royals. That would have been really interesting if he went to the same organization Bo went to. But he does get to go to Oakland. So there is something a little kind of cool there.
Maybe he'll play for the Chiefs. So we can go Kansas City on the football side, Oakland on the baseball side.
There we go.
There you go.
Pulls a reverse bow, I guess.
There you go. By the way, Kyler Murray this year in 51 games for the Oklahoma Sooners batted .296, .398, and there is a .556 slugging percentage to go along with that. So pretty solid numbers in 51 games for Oklahoma, and a guy who obviously the athleticism is off the charts with him. And I think it'll be interesting to see if Kyler Murray, what we saw with Anthony Alford is a guy who most recently, as far as prospects go, probably had to have this conversation with himself and the people around him, but was playing football, was playing baseball, and eventually came to the crossroads where he decided, I'm not going to be able to do one of these at a high level. What do I have to choose? This, going into this year, for Kyler Murray, how this season goes in Norman on the football field, I wonder how much that's going to dictate what he does going forward for a potential baseball career or sticking it out with football. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. I also don't know how, if Kyler Murray signs for a signing bonus of $4.5 million, goes and plays 1 year of baseball and then decides, I'm going to do football. Do you get to keep all that money? How does that work?
I mean, if you sign it, I would think so.
I would think so, right?
I mean, remember a couple years ago, Jeff Samardzija is a pretty good example of somebody who tried out football and then decided to give baseball a full-time tilt. The Orioles drafted Patrick Connaughton, also out of Notre Dame. Do you remember this? Back in 2014, they took him in the 4th round, and he was considered a better basketball player than a baseball player, but they allowed him to make 6 appearances for Class A short season Aberdeen that year. He eventually went pro as a basketball player. So as much as we love to see guys stick, Alfred is one of those. And again, I'll go back to Amir Garrett. He's also stuck and is a major leaguer now, so it's worked out. It's still possible that they could go the other way. Personally, I am somebody who would prefer not to potentially get a concussion week in and week out. But that's why I cover baseball, not football.
That's true. Those football writers, they deal with the concussions the same way. Strike 2 this week. We kind of covered it a little bit in one of them anyway with Kyler Murray. But biggest surprises from the draft this year, Sam, what stood out?
Yeah, I mean, all these things we're talking about with Murray, could have been possibilities anywhere. Like, I don't think he was necessarily a top 20 talent, certainly not a top 10 talent. So for him to get popped at number 9, just really stood out to me because, like I said, everything was so predictable to that point. Maybe Ryan Weathers going at number 7 to the Padres was a little bit of a shock, but at least he was definitely first-round talent. I would not have been surprised if Murray dropped all the way to the 2nd round, just because it is so raw. There's a lot you're going to need to work with him on. The plus speed is there, as Tyler mentioned. He's got some power to him. But it's going to take a while to get that going, and there's the possibility he could get injured. He is going to be playing another sport in the fall, and if you don't have control of that, it's one thing to sign somebody and they get hurt in the GCL or the AZL. It's another if you're not around them and you don't have your trainers with them and they don't get to use your facilities and all that. It's a whole new risk. So to see the A's take that risk, it was surprising to say the least, and interesting in terms of their draft strategy. A couple other ones that I was really surprised about. Again, Liberatore falling to 16, Brady Singer especially falling to 18. I thought Singer was locked on at the first dozen maybe. So to see him go all the way down there. But in that same range, Jordan Adams going at number 17 to the Los Angeles Angels. I'm pretty sure either the Rays or the Royals with their large bonus pools would have loved to have seen him fall into the kind of compensation round, that round after the first round, because he's definitely a first-round talent. A lot of questions about him in terms of, is he going to stick to baseball? His dad is the defensive line coach at the University of North Carolina. He was committed to play both baseball and football at UNC. One of the most talented wide receivers, based on what you read about high school talents in football in the country. And then he gets picked number 17 to the Angels. It sounds like he's definitely going to sign. It sounds like that's basically his route now. The Angels taking him. He's a very athletic outfielder, nearly top of the line speed. How it's going to translate and what he's going to do with the bat, we'll have to figure that out. But this is already an organization, as we've said many times, that has Joe Adell, Brandon Marsh as their recent first-round picks, athletic outfielders. And, they took that Mike Trout guy a couple of years back too. If there's an organization that knows how to turn raw outfielders into very good outfield prospects, it is the Angels. Throwing Adams into that mix was surprising, but also very exciting. I'm really interested to see what they can do with him.
By the way,
other one,
Jordan Adams went viral a couple of years ago with one of the most insane dunks. It wasn't in a game,
so
but
nuts.
he just like dunked one-on-one on a kid, and I think it was a Vine originally, back when the only good thing that Twitter ever did, creating Vine, and then they destroyed it. But I'm pretty sure it was a Vine that somebody posted several years ago of Jordan Adams just destroying a kid.
He looked like he was floating.
It was ridiculous. It's like one of the one of those things you think like there's no way that that's physically possible, the way you just did this to a human being. Ridiculous.
I think, I don't know if it was Sports Science or something like that a couple of years ago, did one on dunks and how guys look like they're hovering.
Yeah.
And it's because like you make contact and you think that they're going to go down, but because they made contact, they stood in the air a little bit longer. It's one of those, and it's just
definitely one of those. Yeah.
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 It was up there with
amazing.
the Monte Harrison hype video.
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember that?
Go
YouTube that as well. YouTube both of those. They're crazy exciting. The one other one I just want to throw out there real fast, Seth Beer, for basically 3 years now, has been.
Did not go to the Brewers.
Did not go to the Brewers, which kills all of us. Did not go to the Arizona Diamondbacks because I wanted to see him play for the Hillsborough Hops. I know, it's unfortunate. Goes to the Houston
Rockies,
Astros.
Not going to play in Coors Field.
Nah, man, there's so many possibilities that just everybody failed us on this one.
We'll stop.
Yeah.
We'll stop with these.
He goes to the Houston Astros at number 28. What's surprising to me about that is a couple things. Beer is a hitter. He's a hitter first and foremost. Was one of the best hitters in college as a freshman, one of the best hitters in college as a sophomore. Was very, very good this year. Hit 301 with a 456 OBP, 642 slugging percentage, 22 homers. Struck out 36 times, walked 54 times, all crazy stuff. No clue what he's going to do defensively. I think they announced him as an outfielder, probably going to be moving to first base. Don't even know if he can really play there. Very little speed to talk about. I don't even call it speed. I would say the ability to move his body is not very quick. Probably a DH long term. Good, I guess, that he goes to Houston. He goes to an AL team. But you usually don't really value DH only types in this way. The Astros we usually think of as a forward thinking team, doing things that are unexpected in different ways of, I hadn't noticed that. Everybody knew about Seth Beer. So unless they're discovering something we don't know, I'll be interested to see how they exactly can develop him. He doesn't have a track record with wood bats. He played for Team USA last summer, really struggled then without aluminum in his hand. So, to see the Astros, who I think are a smart organization, obviously they're the World Series champs, to be the ones to take a chance on Seth Beer with their first pick is really something. And, we'll have to see with what they do exactly with him going forward defensively, where they put him next year. Is he somebody that they, allow to take his time because of defensive issues, or do they just throw him in Double-A Corpus Christi and see how he kind of goes from there? I could see a couple different ways they might try to develop Seth Beer. But Seth Beer is now a Houston Astro, and it's now on the Astros to take his bat and to mold into something as impressive as it was in college.
Yeah, he's we've seen this a little bit in recent years with prospects that have, in some cases, graduated and stuck in the major leagues. And guys, for example, there was a story we wrote last night for the site in which Dan Vogelbach popped up. Dan Vogelbach had a grand slam last night for the AAA Tacoma Rainiers from the Seattle Mariners organization, and he's been up and down from the major leagues this year, but one of those guys as well who is not really an athlete in terms of the presentation of himself as a full ball player. He's a hitter and a guy who can get the job done a little bit defensively, but more often than not, he's just going to be looked at as a hitter. Kyle Schwarber is the other one who really comes to mind, who was the 4th overall selection back in 2014. The thing that's so interesting about those couple of guys, though, as compared with somebody like Seth Beer, is Kyle Schwarber, I know coming out of school, was graded, I think, as a 65 hit tool, something like that, 60 to 65 hit tool. Seth Beer's a 50 hit tool with 55 power, which is nothing to scoff at, but it's not as though this is a generational hitting talent. This isn't a Vlad Guerrero type of hitter who is getting selected so high that you think like, well, obviously the bat's going to carry him pretty easily. That's not necessarily the case with Seth Beer, so that is going to be an interesting one to watch with him going at the 28th overall selection of the Astros. But, the Astros have proven us wrong more often than not, so I'm sure they've got a pretty specific plan for Seth Beer and his development in that organization. And just as a note, all of you should probably check the rolls as well because, of course, according to this 2015 story, quote, according to a report released Wednesday by the University of Iowa, 87% of Americans are currently unaware that they have been selected in the later rounds of the 2015 Major League Baseball draft. That's from The Onion. The quote from study author Angelo Crawford was, quote, for example, several 100,000 Americans are now part of the Baltimore Orioles organization and have been assigned to the single-A Delmarva Shorebirds over in Maryland. They just don't know it. So don't ignore phone calls. If an unknown number pops up, it could be anybody, as in this story, Billy Beane calling 7 million Americans who were ignoring his phone call. So you may have been selected. Just give it a check. Strike three this week. Oh, go ahead.
No, I may have told this story before, but I always love to tell it around draft time, is that like growing up as a kid, I thought you could just declare for a draft.
like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy by just walking into a room and yelling it.
Yeah. At the time, I would just send something to Bud Selig and say like, hey, I'm eligible for the draft.
By the way, I'm in this now.
Yeah. Don't worry. By doing so, they would have to put you into the video game. You might not be taken, but like you're technically in the system.
Yeah.
So you would be the worst like Madden player, the worst whatever, but you would be in the video game. And that was my dream. And it just never happened.
That would be, there's always next year, Sam. There's always next year. It's a possibility. And you might be sitting out there thinking to yourself, I was a fairly decent high school ball player. There are 40 rounds in the Major League Baseball draft. Surely I am as good as one of these kids picked in the 40th round. You're not. You're not. Just, we'll put it that way. The kids, even the 40th round picks, even the last picks in the draft are probably worlds better than you were as a ball player. And I'm speaking mostly to myself in this conversation. Strike three this week, Sam. We will continue along in the minor league conversation, move away from the draft. All-star team announcements have started to roll in from across the minor leagues. The Florida State League, Midwest League, Southern League. Take us through the FSL and the Midwest League. Midwest League is the most recently released of these three, but I'll talk a little bit about the Southern League. Tell us about those other two.
Yeah, so the Midwest League I really like because it's got Royce Lewis, who was the number 1 overall pick last year, but also Alex Kirilloff. Both of those guys are on the West Division roster in the Midwest League. Very promising starts to their career for several reasons. Royce Lewis, this is his first full season. Drafted first overall last year, got a little bit of time to Cedar Rapids at the end of last season. Returns there this year, turns into an all-star, hitting for a solid average, showing the positive speed that we all thought he would have. At the time, like you mentioned earlier, Tyler, of sometimes there are surprises at number 1 overall. He was kind of in that category, beating out Mackenzie Gore, Hunter Green, Brendan McKay, whatever. But he's turned into one of the best talents of that draft class so far. And to see him get rewarded in this way is not a surprise, but it's still pretty cool. With Alex Kirilloff as well, he was somebody we had on the podcast almost 2 years ago at this point, when he was a first-round pick back in 2016. It was supposed to be his first full season last year. He ended up having Tommy John surgery before the season began, missed all of 2017, comes back 2018, has not missed a beat whatsoever. He's hitting .330 currently with 11 homers in 54 games. That works out to a .984 OPS. One of the best bats in that league. As a position player, Tommy John surgery isn't necessarily as scary. You don't need your elbow for as much. It's much easier to recover, and your livelihood isn't based on the health of that elbow. But still, to miss a year's worth of at-bats for a high school player, he's still only 20 years old, and to see him dominate in the way he has been really exciting. So over there on the Midwest side, I'm really going to be paying attention to that West Division roster when that game is eventually played. On the FSL side, I got to write this up when rosters were announced. I'm particularly paying attention to this North Division outfield roster. They've got Daz Cameron, TJ Friedel, Christian Pache, and Taylor Trammell. You could put 2 of those guys in an outfield, and I'm pretty sure they would cover the entire thing. It's an incredibly athletic outfield. It's one made of legit prospects. TJ Friedel might be the least prospecty of that group, and that's certainly saying something. Pache might be one of the best center fielders you're ever going to see at any level, regardless of, whether it's low A, whether it's the major leagues. The guy covers a lot of ground in center field. A lot of that is speed. A lot of that is really good reads. He could really put on a show in a kind of all-star type atmosphere. But Daz Cameron, kind of the similar way, really, really good defensive outfielder, kind of like his dad in that way. Has been a positive hitter this year in his first full year anyway, in the Tiger system after coming over from the Astros in last year's Justin Verlander trade. And Taylor Trammell, the Daytona Tortugas, is actually the only top 100 prospect in that group. Again, a guy with plus speed, doing a really good job of hitting and getting on base this year, with a 304 average and a 412 OBP. Power's coming along a little bit for him. It's never going to be a really big tool for him, but he has hit 6 homers in 48 games, and this is the FSL, so it is pitchers' parks all across the Sunshine State. So if you ever want to see one group of players, maybe outside the futures game, that is very prospect-packed, I'll look at this FSL North outfield and get very excited. So, if you're able to catch that game, I think it's in Tampa this year. If you're able to get to Steinbrenner Field in Tampa on June 16th, be sure to watch that North Division. I don't know how they're going to work out playing time amongst those 4, but no matter what, the 3 you see out in that North Division outfield are definitely going to be prospects.
In the Southern League, things kind of begin and end with Eloy Jimenez, and I mean that in an existential sense. No, but Eloy Jimenez is the guy who really headlines the North Division All-Stars, which is a really, really talented roster, but he's going to be part of an outfield group that includes Lamont Wade of the Minnesota Twins organization, Jamie Westbrook, who's a prospect that is kind of, I think, feels like now flying a little bit under the radar in the Arizona Diamondback system, but has put together an impressive season so far. Joining Eloy Jimenez from the Birmingham Barons, both catchers from the Barons are the catching representatives on the North Division All-Stars. Zach Collins, a highly ranked prospect in that organization. Sebi Zavala also. Not often that you see a catcher and his backup catcher make an all-star roster, but a pretty impressive pair there. Thomas Hatch, the Tennessee Smokies and the Chicago Cubs organization, one of the pitchers on the roster of the North Division All-Stars, along with some intriguing names on that group. Genesis Cabrera with the Montgomery Biscuits, a left-hander who turned in a terrific outing his last time out in the Tampa Bay Rays organization. But the arms on the North Division aren't the storyline like they are on the South Division side. The South Division boasts guys like Touki Toussaint, Nick Nadert of Touki of the Atlanta Braves organization, Nick Nadert of the now Miami Marlins organization, Curry Mella of the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, a guy with a very lively arm, Griffin Canning of the Mobile Bay Bears. So some really interesting pitchers in that mix. On the infielder side, a couple of Biloxi Shuckers, Jake Gatewood and Jake Hager, who have put together really good starts to the season as well. And on the outfielder side, a guy that we talked about a little bit ago, Monte Harrison of the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, now in the Miami Marlins organization, and Corey Ray of the Biloxi Shuckers in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. 2 really, really entertaining guys to watch, really fun outfielders to watch. Corey Ray's Biloxi teammate Troy Stokes Jr. will also join him in the outfield on the South Division side. So the North Division, it seems like, may have the edge in terms of its bats, but the South Division seems to have the edge in terms of its arms. That's going to be an interesting matchup in Double-A on that side in the All-Star game.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really excited for kind of all-star season to get going because, it means, guys are going to be recognized for their first half experiences and their production and all that, and that's really cool. But also, it usually all-star season is the time when promotions start happening. Guys get recognized for what they've done. They either get to go to the game or they get it to add it to their resume, or in this case, their Mill player page, and then organizations ship them on to the next place, get them the next challenge. So I would not be surprised if a lot of these names we're talking about now, even if they were promoted before the All-Star games can happen, and they don't always get to participate in those, but they get the fun thing of saying they were that they at least were all-stars in the beginning of 2018. So keep an eye on that. We'll certainly be talking about those promotions as they come in the coming weeks, and obviously on the site every day whenever they come up.
And that'll do it for 3 strikes on this week's episode. One foul ball to get to. Actually, 2 foul balls to get to. One that just kind of happened right before the show. The Tampa Bay Rays have summoned Jake Bauers to the major leagues. Jake Bauers is the guy we've talked about on the show a pretty good amount. And it's funny because we were talking before the show started today, Sam, and Jake Bauers, the 5th-ranked prospect overall in the organization, number 55 in all of minor league baseball. It feels like Jake Bauers has been a prospect forever. He's only 22. He's going to be 22 this entire season. But this year, 52 games with AAA Durham. He's batting .279, .357, .426, 5 homers, 24 RBIs. There have been questions. He's a first baseman / outfielder. Questions as to whether or not the power would be enough to carry him to the major leagues. A guy who's not overly big in terms of playing a corner infield spot and a power outfield spot at 6'1", 195 is what he's listed as. Probably a little bit bigger than that. But just give me your initial take on this Jake Bauers news today going up for his big league debut.
Yeah, Bauers is one of those kind of confounding prospects, as you said, Tyler, in that he's very consistent, which is great. You know, that he's pretty much everywhere he's gone between the Rays and the Padres system before that, he's put up very similar numbers. And there's something to be said for consistency for sure. And, he's only 22 years old. This is his 2nd year at AAA Durham, batting .279 with a .357 OBP, .426 slugging. Those certainly aren't bad numbers. Are they great numbers? Are they, knocking down the door to the major league numbers? I wouldn't quite put it that way. But, the Rays are kind of at a point right now where they have a lot of, talent right on that cusp. Willy Adames is another one of those. He got to make his major league debut a little while ago. Whether Bauers is up for a while or not, we'll have to see. But getting them that first taste, getting them a chance to see major league pitching, even if they're sent back down, they know what they need to work on, what improvements they need to make. Adames hit a homer off Chris Sale when he was up. So sometimes getting that experience and that positivity that comes with a major league call-up, seeing you can do it at the best level against some of the top pitchers and top talents in the game overall can be really good for a player. So, whether Bauers is going to tear up the major leagues, I don't quite see that coming. But, we are seeing right now with, I think Austin Meadows was the NL Rookie of the Month for May, and he was never somebody who really tore up AAA himself. So it's possible to make the adjustments on the fly when you are in the major leagues. I'll be looking forward to seeing what Bauers can do, when he first takes the field for Tampa.
And our second foul ball is back on the All-Star note. The AAA All-Star ballot is up right now at MILB.com/ballot, and you can give your vote to guys like Jake Bauers or otherwise. We hope for Jake's sake he's not even around in AAA to be hanging out for the All-Star game. But the AAA All-Star game ballot is up, and Sam, you'll have a tool shed actually giving us kind of a breakdown of what's coming up on that ballot. What stands out? What can you give us?
Yeah, so this will just be kind of like the guide, the endorsement, I guess, of Toolshed, which is kind of fun. That we're not political writers. We don't get to really have our own opinion pages and all that kind of stuff, and so we never get to make endorsements. So this is as close as I ever get to doing that. But what I'll be doing, and I'm still working my way through that, so I don't want to tease it out too much. But I'll be picking one player from each, the IL, the PCL. That I think you guys should vote for in terms of this year's AAA All-Star game in Columbus, Ohio on July 11th. So look for that on Friday. In the meantime, if there's somebody you want to vote for now without my help, and Lord knows you shouldn't just rely on me for decisions in these matters, go to MILB.com/ballot and vote for yourself.
You can do that, MILB.com/ballot. And as Sam says, in Sam's words, don't rely on Sam.
It's true.
That's what we're coming to. We're going to head back to Monday and the Major League Baseball first-year player draft, round number 1. Sam got to be there in Secaucus, New Jersey at MLB Network and got to catch up with a guy who's got a really interesting background, a very fascinating baseball persona about him. He is listed on the MLB Draft Tracker round 1 breakdown as being a switch hitter and a switch pitcher, which he is. He is a catcher, but he can also switch pitch. He can switch hit at the plate. He was another member of that United States roster at the U18 Baseball World Cup last year that won the gold medal in Thunder Bay, Ontario, a team that as a staff had an ERA of, I think, 0.49 and threw 5 shutouts in 9 games or something like that. And this was the guy leading that pitching staff from behind the plate. Anthony Seigler, now a member of the New York Yankees organization, at least in terms of his draft status. The Cartersville High School product from Georgia, a guy who the Yankees hope to sign and bring along into the tradition of great catchers in pinstripes. Joined the show and talked to Sam from Secaucus coming up next.
So everything Tyler just said is completely true. I just want to jump in here real fast before we get to our interview with Anthony Seigler, just because there's one question at the front here that I never get to ask, Tyler never gets to ask, but this was such a big event that I couldn't hold myself back. If you've seen pictures of what Anthony Seigler was wearing to the draft, it was truly something. If you haven't,
he was resplendent. Yes,
please look them up. He was basically like a seersucker jacket and then a pink undershirt. And then he had like a gold medallion and also a bow tie, a black bow tie. What stood out to me were the shoes. They were legitimately star-spangled. It looked like you took the flag, you kind of made them into shoes. They were sparkly themselves. It was really cool. So I get into that a little bit with him here, but I wanted to paint that picture with you guys before I get to ask him this question.
So yeah, I guess I don't really get to ask this question much, but who are you wearing? How did this whole thing come together?
I mean, like I said earlier, I just went to the mall, just tried to pick out what looked good on me, and probably I guess I wanted to like show a lot of color, right. So I did that, and then the shoes just stuck out to me the best, so I picked them out.
That's one way to debut on national TV, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, take me through this. Now you're in the room after all the build-up, after everything that's gone into the last years, months, weeks, all that. What are your feelings like right now?
I mean, I'm just extremely thankful that I'm here with all these great players, Xavier, Carter, and the other college people, and Tristan too. But it's just an honor to be here. I thank God that I'm here. All the glory goes to Him, and without Him, I wouldn't be here. So, I mean, like I said, it's just awesome.
Yeah, and I saw you talking to Tommy Lasorda before. What comes up in that conversation when you're talking to a guy who's been around the game that long and you're just starting?
Yeah, he's like, I've heard about you. He's like, you're obviously going to be a great big leaguer. You're obviously going to be a great big leaguer one day. He's like, if you want to be great, you just got to keep your mind focused. You got to stay focused on things that's gotten you here, and keep good people in your circle, push bad people away, and just that was it. I mean, just him pouring some wisdom on me.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, are you gonna like write that down? Where do you kind of lock that in?
It's just you never forget about it. I mean, I'm gonna write it down, and then I mean, it's always just gonna stick with me. Just being able to talk to him, because not a lot of people say, yeah, I had a conversation with him.
Right.
So it's just awesome.
Yeah, let's talk about what's got you here. Everybody's talking about you getting drafted as a catcher. You played multiple positions pretty much everywhere. When did it get locked in that you were going to be a catcher?
I think my junior year. I mean, I've always knew I was just going to be a catcher, but I could also play like other positions too. So I mean, I guess this year was the first time I mainly played catching in high school. And for my travel ball team, I'd always catch, but for my high school team, this is the first time I've ever like mainly caught. So
right. What was difficult or easy, or what allowed you to make that transition to full-time catching?
I mean, it was easy. I mean, there was nothing like too difficult for me. I've always wanted to be a catcher, but I mean, just being able to play other positions it was beneficial too. Right. On just off days whenever I wanted to give my legs a break. So I mean, going to the transition of being a catcher all the time. Just being able to be mentally focused every day with my pitching staff, just being able to maintain them and help all the pitchers out getting a lot of strikes for me.
Right. When you said you always wanted to be a catcher, what drew you to that position?
As a young kid, I remember catching a lot, and I mean, just being able to like be involved in a play a lot, just like that's what I loved. I wanted to be involved. I never want to be out in the field, just like getting bored, especially if like the pitcher's like kind of bad. Because I remember in Little League, some of the pitchers get like wild, and you just like sit there, kick around the dirt.
Right.
So I never wanted to do that. And so catching, that's what intrigued me about catching. You're always involved. You're always on. You got to be high alert all the time. So that's what I love about catching.
And I know a lot of people talk to you about being able to pitch from each side,
Yes,
but
sir.
I'll kind of flip it around. Have you ever tried to catch from the right side?
I have not. I've never done it. I've had that question a lot. I mean, I never tried to switch around and try to catch lefty or catch righty. I've always wanted to try it, so I might try it.
Right, yeah. Why do you think that is? Why don't you think guys catch right-handed and throw left-handed?
I mean, it's just rare. I mean, not a lot of people do it, and then I think it probably feel awkward, I guess, maybe,
Right, yeah.
but I don't know.
Yeah, it might throw the pitchers off, I guess, now that I think about it. Like you said, you played a bunch of different spots, some outfield. Obviously, you have the arm to kind of move out there. Do you ever talk to teams throughout this process about maybe being an outfielder, or has it all been catching?
Just catching. I've never talked about teams me being an outfield, because, I mean, if you're looking at me as a catcher and I say, hey, I can also play outfield, I mean, I know they know that in the back of their mind, but it kind of like will say like, hey, he probably wants to be more outfielder than a catcher. So I mean, I love catching, so I'm gonna just stick with catching right now. If they put me out there, so be it.
Right. And one way you got to grow being a catcher was last year in the World Cup in Thunder Bay.
Yes, sir.
I know somebody was calling that series, and there were a lot of great pitchers on that staff. What was it like working with that staff, and how did that help your growth?
It was awesome being able to catch all these great arms. Like Matthew Liberatore.
Right.
He's going early. I know he's gonna be a great pitcher as soon as he gets the pro ball, and then he's gonna excel in major leagues. But being able to catch him and other prospects like Ryan Weathers, Kumar, and Ethan, it was a great honor to catch them. Like you said, they're just great pitchers. They know where to locate their pitches. So I mean, it made it easy for me.
Benjamin Hill joins us for this week's edition of Ben's Biz Banter. I don't know if we ever actually officially dubbed this segment that term. What we have officially dubbed about this segment is that we need to know where Sam is sitting in relation to Ben every week. What is it this week?
Man, coming in hot.
Coming in strong. Because 2 weeks ago we forgot, and then last week you got it in at the end. I totally spaced it. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss it this week.
All right, then. Well, Sam Dykstra is sitting to my left here in conference room 5V in the Chelsea market.
Don't give away our location.
Well, we'll be gone by the time people come for us. We'll be gone.
It's not a live podcast, Sam.
Yeah, it's not live. Sam thinks we're live, but we're not. And fortunately, we also missed a fire alarm that was happening just a few minutes before we did this segment. And one of these days, and I hate to jinx it, we're going to be doing a segment and we're going to hear that alarm. And I think we should just power through.
That's going to be the day we do a live podcast. Is the day the fire alarm will go off.
Yeah, and also it turns out to be a real fire.
Yeah, right.
Well, Ben, let's get in. It's we've got an interesting story that's up on the site about one of the most unique one-off identities that a team has done for a game in recent seasons, and everybody's done the food identity thing. And this team, the Syracuse Chiefs, no strangers to that. They've been the salt potatoes in the past, and but this time around they went with a local element that's not food related, and it is the Brannock Device. And most people, even though you may not know the name Brannock Device, you're probably familiar with the Brannock Device, but walk us through this whole promo from Syracuse's perspective.
Yeah, well, first of all, I had never heard of a Brannock Device before this promotion. I'm going to assume you guys didn't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. A Brannock Device is the device in a shoe store in which you measure your foot, the oblong metallic object. And I actually came across it, in February and March when I was kind of combing through the Chiefs promo schedule, as I do all the teams, and I was like, what is this? And I Googled it and found out. And Paul Lucas got wind of the promotion of UniWatch, pretty popular column about athletic uniforms and whatnot. He heard that the Chiefs were going to be doing a salute to the Brannock Device, and you'd think that the Brannock Device was super obscure and very niche and really wouldn't generate much interest outside of Syracuse. But Paul Lucas, who has a wide audience, loves the Brannock Device. He calls it ubiquitous but anonymous, and he sort of loves those things in our culture that play a real purpose, but no one really knows where they are, yet they're so ingrained. It ties into his overall life philosophy. So he got in touch with the Chiefs, and then Jason Smorrell, the GM, kind of said, okay, there's a little interest here. He's a national guy. We didn't really plan what we're going to do for our salute to the Brannock device, our salute to foot measuring, but we got some interest, and hey, we're open to things. So they went ahead and I'm sure with not much time to spare, designed uniforms so that they could play as the devices. And it took place last Thursday. So they actually, Brannock Devices is trademarked. You can't wear trademarked, terms on minor league jerseys outside of the team names, which might be trademarked.
But
yeah, so
really thought about that.
Yeah, you can't suit up as the Brannock Devices. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but obviously things always need to be cleared with minor league baseball. So they just went with devices, but it's a salute to the Brannock device. They devised a logo that it's an anthropomorphic Brannock device, and that's one thing I love about my job is that I can always use terms like anthropomorphic Brannock device and actually have it be relevant to what I'm talking about.
And you can use them at other jobs. It just probably won't apply to anything. People
right.
You would be like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. You could go ahead.
Saying these things?
Yeah,
and people around your office saying that.
People say what is wrong with me all the time, even in this job, as Sam can attest. But anyway, it was a great night, and Paul Lucas showed up. I wrote a column about it with some of his sort of over the top, but very true quotes in terms of how he feels about how much he loves the device. Some of the most interesting player headshots you will ever see, particularly the visiting team, which had the player's face within a foot. And if it was a right foot, that meant the batter was a right-handed batter, and if it was a left foot, it was the left-handed batter.
That's pretty clever.
I mean, just truly bizarre. They showed clips of Married with Children on the video board because Al Bundy worked in a shoe store. Instead in the water balloon smash, instead of using bats to smash water balloons, between inning game contests, they use Brannock devices, et cetera, et cetera. Typical minor league baseball. But really one of my favorite promotions of the year so far, just because it is so obscure and specific, but yet so much detail went into it, and they got a lot of publicity for something of this nature. And so I would definitely encourage other teams, and I hope other teams kind of follow suit, not doing Brannock device promotions, but to really take a look at their local history and say, what has been invented here, or what very strange, obscure things are unique to our town, and how can we really blow that out?
Yeah, and how much easier is it you said this had to be put together kind of last minute, and a lot of it seems like between the logos and the hats and what all the creative ideas that came of it. But how much easier is it to do when it's not like a Star Wars night and you have to get so much cleared? I know you said Brannock device is trademarked, but when it is such a local thing and such an off-the-wall thing, and nobody quite knows what the standard is, how much easier is it to put together something like this as opposed to some of the other bigger nights?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to teams about various theme nights where you get lost in a maze of, the corporate conglomerates and the chains, and you're trying to get permissions, and you don't even know where to begin or where that entity is owned in some larger, corporate flow chart, and it can be very difficult to get to the right person and get the permissions, and a ton of jumping through hoops. I don't know what the Chiefs went through, but given that the Brannock devices they're not made in Syracuse anymore, but they're made in Liverpool, which is very close to Syracuse.
Liverpool, New York.
Liverpool, New York, yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it was very close
to
Syracuse.
I know. I'm just, people could be shouting at their podcast device right now.
In terms of a galactic sense. If people are listening on the International Space Station.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it's still made close by. Obviously, it's a company with a very specific use, and they don't get many of those requests, and it's a local team, and it's all good publicity. So, this one didn't. I don't think they even decided to play as the devices till after the season started, and May 31st. They were wearing the jerseys. A very quick turnaround time.
It's pretty cool. The story's up on the site right now, milb.com, and segues us well into our next topic with Ben, which is a new book that is out from Paul Caputo with an introduction and an edit from Chris Creamer of sportslogos.net. It might be a name that you're familiar with. Paul wrote some columns for sportslogos.net on the origins of some minor league team nicknames, and he's compiled those into a book called The Story Behind the Nickname, which is really cool because we get these questions so often of why is this team called this? And this is a book that dives into a lot of those identities and pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, it's one of the most enduring and popular questions in the world of the minor leagues is why are teams named what they are? And I'm in a little break where I finished up my road trip material from the last trip, and I'm leaving next week on the next. So I have a little bit of time to write some articles not specific to that. And So I talked to Paul yesterday about how this book came about, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. Just, if you listen to this podcast, you follow the world of minor league baseball. It's essentially 100 articles compiled that he's written through the years into one book that explain just that, the story behind the nickname. And in every case, they're active teams, or if they're not active, they are recently defunct teams. And in every case, he talked to, team executives and or logo designers, and got, firsthand quotes and information about how these different things came to be. So if you're really immersed in the world of minor league baseball, like we might be, you might know a lot of these stories, but, it's minor league baseball. There's so many different stories. And I think to have a book that compiles so many of them in one place with good information, well written, seemed worthy of highlighting it, and so I did. That'll be on the site on Thursday, the same day that this very podcast debuts, because we're not recording it live.
No, we are not recording it. And having gone through it so far, how do you feel like it's a read for somebody who's like going on a road trip or something like that? Somebody, we get emails, tweets, whatever from people all the time saying, "I'm going on my own trip. Which should I hit? What should I look for?" Is this something they should carry around as they're kind of bopping around certain areas?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be up to you whether you want to carry it around, but absolutely. I mean, I think it's a great source for information, and I found this through my own job. Knowing about minor league baseball is so helpful in that it just helps you know so much about America, and that's one of the things Paul was saying in talking to him. Almost every team name contains at least some type of local reference. So when you know the stories behind these names, and you have all the foundational knowledge of so many stories just throughout America of things within these cities, small towns, whatever they may be. So I think it's really beneficial to read up on this kind of thing. And, in talking to Paul, he's like, I have so much useless trivia. And I feel like that sometimes. I mean, we just have so much minor league information bouncing around in our heads, but it really can be it can apply to having a greater knowledge of America, and that's why I recommend reading books like this and following the world of minor league baseball, because as you guys know, it's not just about sports, it's about learning through the entirety of the country, through all the 160 teams that play here.
How else would we know what a Brannock Device is?
Exactly.
That is true. We may soon have a team named the Sod Poodles, which is a local reference, I guess, in Amarillo, Texas. And Ben and I, a couple years ago, if you missed this, did an entire show. Actually, was that last season? We did an entire show on team songs. A lot of teams.
2 years ago. Yeah.
2 years ago. Team-specific songs, theme songs, rally songs, songs you play when you come into the ballpark, when you leave the ballpark, when they hit a home run, seventh-inning stretch, all that type of stuff. There is already a song out there for a team that does not yet exist. And the team in Amarillo, one of the possibilities for the name of that team is the Sod Poodles, and there is a song already out. It's up on YouTube. You're going to hear a little bit of it here as we break out of this segment. But how did you come across this song?
I think it was in a Twitter. It's a blessing and a curse. I got tagged on Brandiose, that runs the Name the Team contest, on their tweet announcing the 5 Name the Team finalists. So then for really the better part of a week, my Twitter notifications have been dominated by angry people, most of them from Amarillo, being outraged that this is the best they could do, these 5 name choices. And of course, this is a drama we see play out time and time again in minor league baseball. So I wasn't paying, a ton of attention to all the notifications I was getting in this, but this Sod Poodles theme song was dropped on that thread at one point, and I couldn't help but take a look and a listen, and I actually liked it a lot. It's got some depth and some soul, and it seems very Amarillian to the extent that I know what the people and sounds of Amarillo are. And but hey, it's minor league baseball. We'll learn about Amarillo because it's part of the minor league baseball landscape, to go back to my original point. And I'm not sure if a song has ever been written about a sod poodle before, so it's pretty cool.
It's a strong point in the category of sod poodles. I feel like none of these other team names, potential names, having a song yet. Sod poodles getting a leg up on everybody.
Absolutely.
He's Benjamin Hill. You can find him on Twitter at Ben's Biz. The blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you guys, and always great to talk to you, Tyler, and always great to talk to Sam Dykstra sitting to my left.
Sitting to your left, and in both the left and right audio channels of your headphones coming right now, the Amarillo Sod Poodles song from one Carson Leverett on YouTube. You can find this song there in its entirety. We'll hear a little bit of it right now. Carson Leverett with a song that, as of right now on YouTube, is just called Amarillo Sod Poodles.
Well, they ain't just like a little yipping dog, a little bit smaller than a big groundhog. They run real wild and they smile all the time. They used to be called prairie dogs, but that won't work for AA ball when it's the bottom of the ninth and the game is on the line. They are the sod poodles, that's right, they are the sod poodles. And when you come to our rough and rugged town, you might laugh and point and say, oh lordy, man, their name's insane. But you won't be laughing when you get beat down by the sod poodles, that's right, they're called the sod poodles. You won't be laughing when you get beat down by the sod poodles, that's right, they're called the sod poodles. Cheer 'em on so they don't stay underground.
Well, we got some bummer news to wrap up the show with that just broke from MLB.com. Quote, Cardinals right-handed prospect Alex Reyes underwent surgery to reattach a tendon in his right lat on Wednesday, and he's expected to miss the rest of the season. Reyes, who is the Cardinals' #1 ranked prospect, made just one start in his return from Tommy John surgery on May 30th before exiting from his 2018 debut after the 4th inning. This is a huge bummer. Alex Reyes has been, to say snake-bitten would not even really cover it over the last couple of years for Alex Reyes. And this is just the latest setback. And, certainly time is still somewhat on Alex Reyes' side. He's 23 years old, but after coming back from Tommy John surgery, which he had in February of 2017, really before everything got started with spring training last year, came back, was fantastic this year, got things started, made one appearance in Peoria, one in Palm Beach, one in Springfield, one in Memphis, then was up in the major leagues, and now it's done. This is a real bummer for him and for Cardinals fans.
Yeah, it's such a bummer just because he was so exciting to watch during, all those rehab assignments, and, you can put those aside as, it's rehabbing for a major leaguer, but he was so special in those outings. And, the amount of work that goes into rehabbing a Tommy John, rehabbing from Tommy John, it's not easy. It's a long road. It takes, a lot of work and a lot of sitting and a lot of telling yourself there's a light at the end of that tunnel. And for him to get there and then, have this other injury is really tough. And, the Cardinals seemed very happy and very excited about what he was doing and getting him back out on a major league mound. I know they were saying that there were no restrictions on him going forward, that they thought they had brought him along in the correct way. And for something like this to happen, it is really tough. And, the Cardinals have pitching depth. So if we want to turn it to what are they going to do? How are they going to fill that role now? I think, Austin Gomber is there. They have a couple other really promising prospects in that AA, AAA level for when it comes to pitching, but nobody quite at Reyes' level. There's a reason why he was the top prospect in that system. And, we'll be having the same discussion again next spring about what do you do with Alex Reyes and how do you bring him along so, another major injury doesn't happen to him again. And that's just really upsetting.
MILB.TV has all of the top talent in minor league baseball. And Sam, what are you watching on MILB TV this weekend?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to take this chance to praise a story you did, Tyler.
What?
Just the night before we ran the
fake news.
Yeah, fake news. Yeah, all of what I'm about to say comes from Tyler. So if you need to take that with a grain of salt, you go right on ahead and do that. But Josh James, now the number 30 prospect in the Astros system, probably going to jump significantly from there when rankings are updated in the middle of the season, struck out 13 batters last night against Colorado Springs over 7 scoreless innings. He has now struck out 80 batters in 50 innings between AAA Fresno and AA Corpus Christi. He is currently slated to pitch next on Monday. Normally we try to keep these to the weekend, but we won't speak to you before Monday. So, hey, watch a game on Monday against Oklahoma City. This is somebody who recently discovered that sleep apnea was a big reason why He had been struggling early on in his career. We talked a lot earlier about high draft picks. This was a 34th round pick back in 2014. Now become
junior college from Oklahoma, played 1 year of college ball, then was gone from the baseball landscape for a year, then resurfaced at a junior college. The Astros found him there, picked him in the 34th round. Not real glamorous.
Right, and he's really built himself into a special prospect, and in that Houston Astros system, Tyler did a story where he mentioned working with Max Scherzer, which is really cool. So go check out that story. Watch Josh James on Monday against Oklahoma City. I guarantee you will not be disappointed.
A guy who we touched on last week who made a climb since last week, the top prospect in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, Keston Hiura, is now up with the AA Biloxi Shuckers, who are on the road taking on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp coming up this weekend. I just lied to you. They're not on the road. Oh, no, they are on the road. I was going to say they were at home, but they're not. They're on the road. They're
I
in
just told
Jacksonville.
people you did good things, and now you're lying to them.
Fake
What are you
news.
doing?
They're not in Biloxi. Fake news. They're in Jacksonville. The real news is they're in Jacksonville. Neither here nor there. They're going to be on MILB.TV, and if you are not in Jacksonville, that's where you can find Keston Hiura. Through his first 5 games in AA, as of when we're recording this, he's batting .353, .421, .471, so settling in just fine. 6 for his first 17 rather, with that AA Biloxi team, and that's an interesting group right now. And Keston Hiura is the type of guy, I don't think there is a ton that he's really going to need to refine before he makes the jump to the AAA level to Colorado Springs and maybe eventually makes it to Milwaukee. I don't know if that's going to be in 2018, but he seems pretty close to being a guy who is not necessarily a finished product, but as close to a finished product as he's going to be as a minor league player. And being that at AA, I mean, I got a chance to talk to some people in the Brewers organization when he was promoted last week, and the way people rave about him and how he just does everything on a baseball field. Keston Hiura is a fun one to watch, so keep an eye on him, the UC Irvine product, who is up with the AA Biloxi Shuckers in the Southern League. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Thanks for tuning in wherever you found us. If you would like to send us your questions, your thoughts, we always get a lot of draft questions around this time of year. So if you've got some questions, if you're watching the draft or you've been following the draft on MLB.com, whatever it is, you can get in touch. Podcast at MILB.com. Sam is on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra MILB. I am at Tyler Mon. Our biggest thanks once more, getting a chance to catch up with a guy who I don't think you'll be hearing the last of, in Anthony Seigler, now the New York Yankees organization. A really cool story and one of the most interesting talents in the draft this year. Thanks to him for joining Sam from the draft on Monday in Secaucus, and that'll do it for us this week. We'll talk to you next week.